Hello and welcome to Mike's Mets Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pashota. Happy Wednesday to you. We saw the Mets climb over 500 for the first time this season last night with a 3-1 victory over the Pittsburgh Pirates. This is, like I said, the first time that they have managed to get to 500, 9-8 on the season. Started off the year 0-5 to go 9-3 since then. Very impressive on the New York Mets part. So how are they doing this? Well, it was good bullpen help last night, and it's been good bullpen help the entire season, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But yeah, just to reiterate, last night was a good win, 3-1. There's certainly a caveat to be made about the quality of the Mets' opponents over this stretch, this 12-game stretch that they've been on, where they've gone 9-3. They have faced, the Detroit Tigers, they faced Cincinnati Reds, the Atlanta Braves, of course, and the Pittsburgh Pirates now, and the Kansas City Royals. And the Royals and Pirates got off the hot starts. There's a question as to where exactly those two teams might land ultimately in their respective divisions. The Royals might be better than we thought. There's a good chance that the Pirates might eventually emerge into a legitimate contender at some point, but that offense looks like it has a lot of good players. Bobby Witt looks like a real superstar on the rise in the future. And then on the Pirates, they have O'Neal Cruz, of course, and a lot of other good young players. But both teams got off to a good start. I don't think they're actually going to be viewed as some of the top teams in the NL East this season, but we'll see how that goes for the remainder of the year. But certainly the 2 out of 3 over the Atlanta Braves rang true as a great performance on the road, and then coming back home and taking 2 consecutive series, which was now their 4th consecutive series win. It's gotta feel good right now with how well they've played over the stretch. So how are they doing that? Well, it's like I said, with bullpen help. The Mets bullpen has been among the Major League's best. They have the lowest ERA in the National League this season, as well as the most strikeouts by a bullpen in all of Major League Baseball, 87 strikeouts. That puts them number 1 and a 3.10 ERA. So they have been getting it done. They've looked utterly sensational thus far, and that's with Edwin Diaz looking a little rusty at times. I mean, certainly not. He's not pitching badly, but he hasn't had quite the same electric stuff that he did in 2022, and that was to be expected. He hasn't pitched in over a year against major league hitters, so you're going to be, feeling it a little bit in terms of how well you're going to pitch. But I like that he hasn't, given up anything major at this point. His performances, while a little bit stilted, have been otherwise very good still. And he's been, I think, just in terms of a fearsome guy at the end. I mean, he's still throwing high 90s fastballs. Still has the great slider. So he's still doing all of that, which we expected him to do. It's been the other members of the Mets bullpen that have stepped up also in this stretch, particularly because the starters have not been, let's say, fantastic. None of them have been truly bad. But, Jose Quintana went, 5 innings again last night. He's thrown 4 starts now. He has 20 innings pitched. Yeah, so he's not going particularly deep in these games, nor is really anybody. Nobody could be considered really an innings eater on this team. You're looking at, Luis Severino, and Severino might be the only guy who I would consistently guess would be somewhere pitching around 7 innings, 8 innings if he's pitching well on the season. He keeps his pitch rate pretty low in terms of that, but. Manea cannot be confused with an innings eater, or Adrian Hauser. Jose Budo, I don't think really has the legs really either. Although Budo did throw 6 innings in his last start, sensational start against the Pirates, or actually rather against the Royals. And so we have that to look forward to. And what they've been getting done is just from terrific bullpen work. Who are usually, the relievers are sometimes coming in these games and throwing 4, 5 innings pitched, depending on how well the starter has done, and they're just getting it done every night. I mean, I read out the stats before: 3.10 ERA, 87 strikeouts. through a little over 3 weeks of the season right now. Like it looks pretty electric right now, and the surprising the surprising guy thus far has been Reed Garrett, and we got to talk about Reed Garrett right now, which is that he looks like Andrew Miller, like circa 2015. Andrew Miller, if you'll recall, was the reliever on the Orioles, Indians, and a number of other teams in the mid 2010s, and was doing it on a nightly basis. It seemingly would come in and just throw like an inning or two of just electric relief, and would do it constantly over and over again. And that's just what Rick Garrett's been doing. I mean, the numbers on his splitter this season have been incredible. I don't think we've really seen somebody just kind of like all of a sudden emerge into an elite reliever like he has been. But he has. He's been absolutely electric early on this season. He has, well, against the splitter Reed Garrett employs as his like strikeout pitch, hitters are 1 for 9 against it. They have no extra base hits, 8 strikeouts. They are striking out basically 2/3 of the time that he throws it. Those are the stats according to Matthew Brownstein. And this is really shocking. I don't think we ever really anticipated Garrett emerging into this critical part of the Mets' middle relief. He's really stepped up every time that they've asked him to come in. He's just throwing it, and he struck out 6 batters in 2 innings of work last season. It was last night, and this is, and honestly, I think it's all he might have struck out last season as well. Like it's been pretty like night and day from what we were expecting from Reed Garrett. And then of course you have Adam Bonvino, you have Brooks Raley, and Jake Diekman has not been fantastic, but they've gotten by with it. The surprising one has also been Drew Smith. Drew Smith has looked really good early on this season. He got the save last night. And Jorge Lopez, another surprising guy. Early on, everybody has been stepping up in their own way and coming through, but none more so than Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett has been the pivotal bridge to that to the 8th and ninth inning for the Mets, and when they haven't had him on nights, they've leaned on Brooks Raley and Jorge Lopez and Drew Smith to get them through that period of time to make the bridge to Edwin Diaz. And what we've seen so far has been pretty amazing. I don't think we ever really anticipated that it would be this good. There were certainly the early returns, and we still have a lot of season to go, but well, we looked at it on paper in the offseason. I made an episode about it on this podcast. It was the bullpen might be sneaky good. We don't really know what exactly we're looking at yet, but it might be fantastic. It's been fantastic thus far. I've been very pleasantly surprised by how good they've looked. And I ran off those names. It was Edwin Diaz, Adam Ottavino, and Brooks Raley are 3 really good relievers. I mean, Diaz, the best reliever in baseball 2 years ago. Sorry, and Brooks Raley and Adam Ottavino have been consistently terrific relievers these past couple of years. Really very underrated over the last stretch. I don't think we could have anticipated, though, that everybody would be this good early on, and they've been the MVP of the Mets season thus far has been the Mets bullpen. We've seen the burst of offense from certain guys. Brett Beatty has been very impressive early on this year. He's come through in a number of clutch hits, batting .305 on the season. Pete Alonso, of course, off to a great start to his season. 6 home runs, 10 RBIs, just to start the year off. And they're still waiting for JD Martinez to get here. And when JD eventually does arrive, it's going to be, I think, a boon to that offense. There's Francisco Lindor can't possibly be struggling for this long. Guys like him and McNeil, although McNeil did come up with the big RBI double last night, they've just kind of been leaning on certain guys to kind of step up. Harrison Bader's come up with a number of clutch hits in the last few games, and they're just making it work. They're about to be tested in a much different way. They're going to go on the road and play 6 games against the Dodgers and Giants. So it's Dodgers and Giants, even though the Dodgers not gotten to a great start. Facing that just murderer's row type of lineup that the Dodgers employ, it's not going to be easy for this pitching rotation, particularly the starters, and it's going to be a big test for the Mets bullpen, which has, as I said, been one of of Major League Baseball's elite groups thus far. We'll see how well they fare. Mets are going to finish up the series tonight against the Pirates and try to get that sweep. The series will finish up with Luis Severino on the mound for the Mets. And Severino, if it has looked, it's been sort of up and down for Severino in his first 3 starts. If he can come out of it with a good start tonight against or rather today, against the Pittsburgh Pirates, I could say that he could be looking at a pretty good season from him. I don't really know yet for sure if Severino is going to be how long Severino can kind of last in terms of this. His health is certainly a question mark. But thus far, has started off his season looking really good and looking much better than he did last season with the Yankees through his first 3 starts. So here's hoping that we have what could potentially be a solid signing by the Mets to kind of fill in that rotation piece. There are guys to call up, of course, during the course of the season. Maybe other guys who can be traded for. I've seen it being floated around on the internet that Paul Blackburn could be a potential addition to the Mets rotation, maybe near the trade deadline or earlier. Still remains to be seen what they want to do to kind of round out that pitching rotation. But acquiring guys who have to kind of fill would have been the weaker parts of the Mets team thus far will be an important test for David Stearns. But thus far, what he's done with that Met bullpen has been nothing short of miraculous. And some of the best Met teams of all time have been defined by their bullpen work and how well they can kind of bridge it. And if they can get a little bit more help from the starting rotation, which I think they can, if some guys pitch a little bit better than they have been, we're looking at it would potentially be a wildcard team. I don't want to be just because the Mets are on a 9-3 run right now, be especially emboldened and think that this is a playoff team thus far. Right now, it's sort of a borderline team, but they've made a great push. They've made their way into the top of the NL standings thus far, and there are teams that are going to kind of push away, other teams that are going to stay in place, but a 9-8 start to the season, nothing to sneeze at. They're just a half game behind the Phillies for second place and 2.5 games behind the Braves. And you're looking at it, you're saying, well, okay, this team might be able to kind of do something right now. So it feels good to be a Met fan right now. We're looking at this team through the lens of positivity and happiness right now. We'll see how they fare after they go on the road, but these next 7 games are going to be pretty critical for the Mets in terms of how we view them for their full season stretch. And if they get pounded by the Dodgers and Giants in California, it could be bad. But I liked what I've seen thus far. The bullpen group has been electric, and if Reed Gary can continue this stretch for the Mets.
Thank you for listening to Mike's Mets podcast. Please be sure to follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Finally, please also follow the podcast Twitter, which is Mike's Mets Pod, all one word. Appreciate your time and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening. Let's go, Mets.